Detours. Brought to you by Sports and Spokes, the magazine for wheelchair sports and recreation. There's little argument that Tatyana McFadden is one of the greatest, most influential, and well-known Paralympians of all time. Pretty soon, she will embark, as a matter of fact, in just days, on her 7th Paralympic Games, where she hopes to become the winningest chair racer of all time. Welcome, Tatyana.
Hello, thanks for having me.
And along with it is the legendary Canadian coach, Peter Erickson. For 30 years, Pete, you coached the Canadian team to 37 medals. In 2008, you were the Canadian Wheelchair Sports Association Coach of the Year. Thanks for coming on, Pete.
Thank you, Bob. Nice to see you again.
Hey, to the both of you, first of all, I want to say, it's been a long, great trip for both of you. You've had such storied careers, each one of you in your own way. One is an athlete, one is a coach of so many great athletes. Peter, you with Chantel, and we're going to address that, and Jeff Adams, and so many more. And Chantel, there's a lot of interesting things to get to. But, first of all, Tatyana, this is going to be your 7th games. You've been through 6 games now. You've got 19 medals, and it's no secret you're going for the medal count. But also, this games has to be very special to you as well.
It is. It is really special. I'm really thankful that I have been in the longevity of it. A lot of athletes, they make it to at least 1, or if they're really lucky, they get to 3. So it's pretty extraordinary if you can even make it to 5 and then on. So having this being my 7th overall, my 6th summer is pretty incredible. And I do love chasing records, and chasing Chantel's is a big honor because she really set the stage very high for Paralympic sport, especially in the women's field, which is really nice.
Yeah, we're going to get back to that. But, just on the most generic level, just thinking back, and it's hardly generic. I mean, it's really quite amazing when you think the span, of 24 years. 3 decades of being an elite, athlete in adaptive sport. Wow. It's just so much to really consider. And it may be an impossible thing to answer, but when you look back on those games, starting all the way back in 2004, can you think of one games or one specific or any particular special instances that happened along those years?
Well, in 2004, I was really ecstatic to win a silver and bronze medal because I was like the youngest ever to compete in track and field, and at the time, no one thought I would medal. It was my first international experience ever. Like, I hadn't been to a previous world championship at that point. And so I was so excited to take home a silver and bronze. And then another special one was absolutely getting my first gold. You never forget your first gold, right? And that was in 2012. And then Rio doing something really extraordinary.
The gold, real quick, what was that event?
My first gold was in the 400 meters. That's what started the competition on the track. The 400 was first, and took home the gold that day.
Yeah, just amazing. When you just think of the staggering number of times that you've sat on top of the podium. And Pete, I want to bring you into this because, we started talking a little bit about Chantal, and, she has set such an unbelievable mark. And I know Tatyana, both you and she both have immense respect for one another. So it's pretty easy to, say that, you're chasing a legend in many ways, and you're a legend, which is, it's just, there's so many coincidental and cool moments. Pete, what's it like for you? You coached Chantal to all those medals, and now here you are, you've crossed over, and you're working exclusively with Tatyana. What is the relationship like, and how did that come to be?
Well, first of all, I coached Tatyana 2004 to 2008 as well, before she went to university. So when she called me now 3 years ago, I basically was retired, and I thought this was all over. And she asked me if I could help her, and I go, okay. I didn't plan on coaching anymore. I thought that was done. but I wasn't, obviously. But anyway, so it to me, it was like a continuation of 2004, 2008 period where we started initially. So we knew each other really well, and so that's how it went about.
So, Peter, what in working with Tatyana as she's moving up in the age group, there has to be an adaptation and a change in terms of a style of training. You just can't go out and beat her up every single day like you do a 20-year-old. So, what is it what have you incorporated to help her stay healthy as she's gotten into her seventh games now?
Well, the issue had sorry.
I have a young spirit, Peter. 35 is the new 25.
The issues in the past with Tatyana before we started was medical issues, injuries. It was no consistency in training. So basically, we've been very sparse on competition opportunities and only done that when we needed to rebuild her back. So for the last 3 years now, it has been a program for rebuilding her, so to avoid injuries, to avoid any type of medical issues, and building back the foundation. And now we're topping it up, so to speak. So it's been a different way. When she was 14 to 18, then you could do whatever, right? It was just go for it. And now it's been a little bit different that way. But I think keeping in uninjured and have no medical issues, you see your progress over time. It take longer time. I wish sometimes we had more years, right? But we might have in the future. I don't know. But I think the progress has been enormous from the moment we started. It's been a big difference.
Would you say it's been a lot of, in Tatyana, I know you have to be able to communicate with Peter, because if you're hurting or you're tired or you feel worn down, these are communications the two of you need to get together on and say, hey, I'd love to go out and do this extraneously difficult workout, but what I really feel right now is my shoulder's a little twingy, my back hurts a little bit. How do you guys communicate when it comes down to the fine tuning?
Well, I think the biggest issue was that when I, contacted Peter, was that I needed like a lot of help. I was diagnosed with a blood clotting disorder in 2017.
Exactly.
And it turned my life like upside down, and I had to start over. I was no longer like, my body was no longer the old, me. So we had to talk honestly to each other and about where I was at, how my clots were doing, because they kept coming back in 2017. It was a year of like, they cleared and then they came back, and then they cleared and came back. And, it was going to take 18 months plus to recover just from the clots. And then to put training on top of that, right? Plus, all your competitors are so healthy every single training session. So I was already behind at that point. So it was just being honest about, the blood clot situation. My iron levels were also very up and down too. So when Peter said, taking the time off, I had to take a little period time off because the iron level got so low. It was like at an 8 or 11 or something. You're supposed to be out of 50. And that's just what happens when you're on blood thinners full time. The doctor says, it's just going to happen one day. We don't know when, but we will track it. So it happened then.
Hey, Tatyana, on a purely technical level, I know that the way you sit in the chair, and many of the racers, well, almost all of now in the kneeling position, were the blood clots in some way attributed to the situation of the way you were sitting so confined or tightly in the chair?
For me, no, because I always would get out and stretch, and I have like feeling all the way up to my knees. So, but I've Maytherner syndrome, which is odd to have as a competitive racer, which is like slow blood flow from the feet to the heart. And so just traveling and having that, and it was just bound to happen with Maytherner syndrome. It was completely changed my life.
So I think I can add something to that, Bob. Maybe is that during this initial time when the iron level was low, I had direct contact with the doctors to see what level we could train at and monitor that very closely. At the same time, as we avoided longer flights, like Japan type of travel, right? And it was took a long time in between every travel just to avoid it and be able to train at whatever level we were at the time.
Gotcha. All right. I want to back up just a hair, Tatyana. So you started at such a young age, and I've heard this story before, and I've seen this from Teresa Skinner with her program up in Spokane, and she was commenting in an article about how, you know, a lot of the younger kids, their parents attempting to bring them into the fray and getting them involved in athletics or kicking and screaming and yelling. And, you know, I'm just curious, did you adapt directly to sports? Did you want sports, or was it something more that your family brought to you and you had to adapt to?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So after I was adopted at the age of 6, I had several surgeries. My legs were atrophied, but I had my back because I was neglected medical treatment for the first 6 years of my life. And so after like 10 surgeries, always in and out of the hospital for the first, solid year when I came into the U.S., my parents put me in a local sports program. They're the ones at the time that did the research because it was not out on social media. It was not printed in papers. It was not talked about. And so my parents, were brilliant. They're like, well, we want her to be healthy. We know she can be independent. We know she could go to school and travel and conquer the world if she wants to. And they thought, well, sports is perfect because every kid in America gets involved with sports and they're making friends and, they learn about, goal setting skills and just having a great time. And so that's where we found the local sports program. And my mom actually introduced Daniel's mom into the sports program at a conference. And so it just, we kept talking about it in our local communities and everywhere where I went and traveled, we really talked about the importance of the local sports program and what it can bring to the child, right? It wasn't set out to be this elite athlete. I was just set out to have a healthier lifestyle, be confident in myself, and had that self-confidence as someone with a physical disability. And probably the only one in my community or in my school with a physical disability. So sports really gave me that confidence.
So Tatyana, just really quick, let me jump in. So you're only 15 years old, if I'm doing my math right, when you pick up your first silver and your first bronze. So was it all, am I accurate here?
Yeah, that was like 9 years after I was adopted. So
yeah, I have to assume if you've made that kind of commitment, it was definitely for you at this point and not your mom. You were wanting to do this.
Oh, absolutely. I saw, in 2003, leading up to 2004, was in the papers about like going to the Olympics and representing your country. And I was like finishing up, like I was in 8th grade at this point, and I was like, well, that's awesome. Competing in something you really love and representing your country. Like, I love wheelchair racing. I want to go and represent my country. And I didn't even know the Paralympics even existed. I thought it was just the Olympics. It was just for everyone. So I was like, Mom, I'm headed to the Olympics. And she was like,
classic.
All right, it's going to be the Paralympics, but we're going.
We'd like to take a minute to thank our sponsor, Sports and Spokes magazine. For nearly 50 years, they've produced stories on iconic athletes performing at the top of their game, given generational coverage of sports dating back to the 1970s, and they've shown the way with exciting and timeless magazine cover shots. To stay on top of all the latest news from the world of high-performance adaptive sports, go to sportsandspokes.com. Sports and Spokes, the magazine for wheelchair sports and recreation. Hey guys, let's step back a little bit too and talk a little bit about the Chantal experience. So, Pete, you can weigh in on this because obviously you know her well. I do too. Last night, I was actually laying around on the couch and I suddenly noticed Chantel's, her little green light came on and we just started chit chatting about this and that. I said, hey, I'm interviewing Tatyana tomorrow. So, and I'm paraphrasing here. So the woman with 21 medals, I said, hey, so I'm talking to Tatyana and, this and that. She's going for the medal count. And I said, how do you feel about this? And she said, I really wish her the best. As we both know, we all know, Chantel is a great lady, classy lady. I mean, and I'm sure she absolutely means that. But then she chimed in and said, but I have more gold.
She does. Yeah, no, that's,
Really but I think that the part of this is that she might not have said, but she was the one who initiated a call between Tatyana and her before the game start to wish her all the best. And records are to be broken and medals you keep, right? So if you have a record of so many medals, somebody else will do better eventually. And same with everything when it comes to record, right? So it's just she had it for now what
20 years. 20 years.
Yeah, she says she's had it since 2008, and it's quite an astounding record, and and you're right, records are meant to be broken, but in both ways, it's when you look at the relationship of the racing, and calling someone the greatest, the GOAT, the best of all time. I mean, you both have your own attributes, whereas she has a lot of gold and 21 medals, and you're likely to eclipse that in this games. You have an astounding road career. You got to win in New York. You got to win in Boston. You got to win in Chicago. Chantel never really dipped into those kinds of distances. So there's an interesting dynamic at play here.
Yeah. Well, road racing it really took off, I would say, maybe when I was in college. I mean, the establishment, it took so long. It took so long for the previous athletes, one, to race it pretty much in a day chair, under 3 hours, to say, okay, you're allowed in the marathon, essentially, with Bob Hall, who ran Boston and did it under 3 hours. And it took a lot of athletes before me to really advocate and say, yeah, we can run these marathons. We can get prize money. And so it took a very long time. Yeah, Peter?
I think also it's a different in funding system, right? Because the U.S. athletes, they can win prize money to have their competition schedule because they need to pay for most of it themselves. While in Canada, you get funding from the government on a monthly basis. It used to be $1,800. I don't know what it is now. It's probably more. Plus, you get camps and competition paid for. So for Chantal, in this discussion, there was never a discussion really around doing any road races. That was not what any focus was on at any time, because she didn't have to worry about the survival or getting a medical insurance like most of the US athletes have problems with.
Yeah, no, that's 100% true. It's my hustle, essentially, after the Paralympics is over. You just go full-time road.
You've got more than that as a hustle, because every time I look online, you're either picking up something from Uber Eats or something. So you got it going on. And speaking of which, when you look at your athletic performances and everything that you've accomplished, I hate to kind of really dip into this too much, but you have to feel in some ways that you've created a certain amount of social change. Do you, by your attitude, by your performances, by the things that you've accomplished? When you look back at that, do you feel that? Do you sense that?
I do, and I'm really thankful for many, many reasons. One is definitely my parents, and for me, finding, it's so cliche to say finding my why, but I really found that at such a young age, coming home from the Paralympics, not being recognized, and then suing my high school for no money for the right to participate, but then having, being surrounded myself with athletes starting out with Peter and Chantel and the Canadian team, and really talking to them about what's going on in the Paralympics. What are they seeing? What's that social like? there, what are they doing to change it? So I was really, it was amazing being surrounded. I mean, they were much older than me, but just being around that discussion, it was really, really important to me. And I just wanted to continue on with that discussion. And after I sued my high school for no money, but for the right to participate in high school sports, having all people with disabilities to participate in high school sports, it was important to me. And that reason, finding that why was that people really don't know what disability is. They think it's a taboo in the United States or majority in countries. And, what is the Paralympics? Does the public understand Paralympics? It's creating that education. And so that's what I promised myself when I won that like silver and bronze. Like, okay, I'm going to be like the best one day, like Chantel, and I'm going to be the voice of America. And she's like the voice in Canada, and I'll be the voice in America.
Do you feel like you've accomplished that?
I feel like it's taken, it's really a group, it's a collective group work. It's not just me, it's the athletes, it's my teammates before me, it's all the athletes before me, from different countries, and it's the athletes. You can't win this by yourself. So I surrounded myself with amazing people, with Olympians and Paralympians and elite ambulatory runners and wheelchair racers. It's not just yourself. I've been pretty gutsy in advocating for some things, but for the right reasons. Like telling a marathon, like I will, even though I won it, I was like, I'll never come back if we do this press conferences separately. Like I don't agree with it. Like I don't think I'll be back. And they magically changed it next year. But it was a good thing, because when we were there, they interviewed all the elite ambulatory runners, and when they got up, the media got up too and left, and then we took the stage, and I was like, I can't even share my story. She can't share her story. Like, we can't really talk about wheelchair racing. Like, we can't educate, the state that we're running, the marathon in, and how is the public going to know? So it's, being a good voice for it, and then using social media, showing how I train, how I work out, how I travel. So it's been a good package deal.
Go, Pete. Looks like you got something to say.
Yeah, and I think that it has changed quite a bit, but I think the champion when it started with this was Scott Hollenbeck. He was the one that sued USOC to get medical insurance.
Yeah.
And I think he was the one that really got the ball rolling, and then Tatyana come in and fill in after, which I think is great.
Well, I think that, everybody's done such amazing work, and I would love to, sit here for 20 more minutes and get into so many other implications. But, my final question, and it kind of goes to both of you, and feel free to answer, in whichever order you prefer. But, when you look at, the overall athletic performance, when it's all said and done, 7 Paralympics, 30 years, 3 decades, a good portion of your life, when the dust settles, what does it all mean?
That's a great question.
That's a hard question to answer, I think.
It is a hard question because,
it's
complex.
As a coach, I think after every major event like this, and I experienced it the first time in 2000, and I went through the Olympics and then the Paralympics, as I did many times. And then I remember flying back to Canada and looking out the window and thinking, now what? It's like everything stopped, right? It's been very intense, everything stops. So now you kind of have to recharge and reset, and then start to think about what is it that you want to achieve, not so much as a coach as it is for the athlete, right? I mean, the coaches are there to be the educator as far as I'm concerned, and the one that helps out. But in the end of the day, it's the athletes that makes the performance happen, right?
Yeah, and for me, when I get so emotional, like during opening, and then like during closing, I just like, you just like cry of happiness. I mean, I can't explain it, whether if it's like good or tough games like it was for me in Tokyo. I always get really emotional. And then, you think about, okay, like I want to go, like, I'm going to do the next 4 years, and then in between I'm going to be doing this and this. And Just sort of enjoying like the day after that, and then replanning what I want to do and my refocus, and what other advocacy work needs to be done around this. How is the promoting going with with NBC, with Team USA? Are we doing a good job? Are we paralleling and not so you sort of have like a reflection when everything kind of settles, and think about what you want to do next.
I have a funny story about this, to be honest with you, Bob, if you
Go,
have
Pete.
2 more
Yep.
minutes. So in 2004, that was going to be the end of my coaching career. I had decided, because we had got more than one kid at the time. And as you know, Chantal won golds, and Jeff won, and Kelly won medals. So I go, okay, I promised them to be there until it's over. Now it's over. Now I can go home and focus on other things. And I was set to, that was it. And then 3 days after the closing ceremony, I got a card from Chantal, and it says, "Thanks, coach. Let's do it again." And I go, okay, now I can't back down. But on the other hand, now I don't know what to do. I mean, you know how to build up an athlete, but now you have to maintain it for another 4 years. That's a worst case scenario, actually, for a coach.
Yeah, you got to reset
it,
and go
though.
all over again. And just when you were getting ready to let down. Last words, Tatyana, last words. They're hanging that 20-second medal around your neck, and you must have to have envisioned it. I mean, we're, as a former athlete, picturing the magic moment is always there on the back of your brain while you're pounding out those miles. What's it going to be like?
It's just going to be gratitude. I'm going to be so thankful, because, I know what it was like to absolutely have everything. And then I know what it was like to almost lose the sport. So I will probably be very thankful. I will be doing, 5 events. So hopefully it'll be 5 medals at these games, or as we say, it will be 5 medals at these games. But having that 20-second, I'll be very, very thankful. And I'll probably text Chantal and just say thank you, for being who you were and are. She's still an amazing woman. I mean, she's doing amazing advocacy work in Canada.
Absolutely.
Still, so, yeah, I'll probably message her.
Very nice. I can't thank you both enough. It's, of course, both of you have great words of wisdom, and you've shared many great insights. To Peter, keep going, buddy. You're doing great things. You've done, you're doing a great job keeping Tatyana together over there. And Tatyana, I've admired you for years. I'm so glad we finally got together and had this talk. I want to wish you the best over there in Paris. Tear it up, do a great job, get those medals, and just have a lot of fun.
Thank you.
And Bob, the final word for you: keep up the good job, because we need more of this. We need more promotion for the athletes and the coaches. It's something that we're lacking in a lot of media, so keep it going, dude.
Yes.
Thank you, guys.